Throughout Liam Gillick's statement, he claimed that contemporary art does not account for that which is taking place. I agree with this statement. Contemporary art does not account for all of art because of globalization. The nature of globalization means that there are different types of art in every culture. If contemporary art is meant to represent a specific era of artwork such as modern art and postmodern art, then how can it represent this artwork when there are different styles of art everywhere? Under this definition, contemporary art no longer has a meaning because all the countries have a different definition of a contemporary art, meaning that it can't exist as one specific art form.
For example, take the concept of a Western and Eastern contemporary art. These artistic styles are completely different because their cultures are really different and most of the ideas that comprise art come from their culture. Western cultures are more independent thinking, more concerned about career aspiration, and are typically more individualistic. They are more thinking-based and base their life on the concept that it is the only life they have. Conversely, Eastern culture is more feeling-based. They act more as a family unit rather than being individualistic. They have a belief that everything you can get out of life comes from within. They believe in reincarnation and looking within to improve themselves. This contrasts with Western culture, where there is a higher focus on materialistic things like cars, money, and other outwardly things that would make people happy. Therefore, when we look at the Western art, such as American contemporary art, most of the art concept is from individual things, such as individual issues, thinking, and ideas. But Eastern art, such as concept of Korean contemporary art, focus more on the family issues and overall feelings about family. Also, there is often showing spirit life is another important concept of Korean contemporary art.
Even when looking at contemporary art in Asia, they each have their own different styles of art from their own culture. Korean contemporary art is really simple and uses a light color. In Korean history, beauty of the empty space is a common theme, and simplicity is a value in art. We found beauty in the empty space and believe that our spirit comes from empty space.
For example, Korean contemporary artist Lee Woo-fan is the famous Korean contemporary artist who shows the beauty of the empty space in his artwork. In 2011, he shows his artwork at his exhibition called the exhibition titled Marking Infinity in the Guggenheim Museum in New York. It is shown with simplicity, and the contemporary art represents how simple life is. Also, we can find the beauty of white, beauty of empty in contemporary artwork. Munjar in Biennale of Sydney 2012. This also shows the simplicity and elegance of empty space. This collaborative project between two Korean contemporary artists is a metaphor about death and rebirth, and spirit are shown through this artwork with white space. Like this, a lot of Korean contemporary art comes from the idea of spirits and rebirth, where the styles of a Korean contemporary art is typically very simplistic yet beautiful.
Conversely, in Japan, the contemporary form of popular culture is through Japanese animated art. The Japanese culture is defined by its animation. Many people in Japan are inspired by animation, and therefore many contemporary Japanese artwork looks animatic. Also, if you compare Korean and Japanese artwork, Korean artwork is typically much lighter color, whereas Japanese artwork is high contrast, strong, and colorful, creating the animated color.
For example, viewing the Japanese artist Takashi Murakami, he uses a contrast within his artwork, contrasting the vivid colors of the characters with the dark outlines of his portraits. Furthermore, he puts focus on many details and typically uses a much more cartoonish picture in his artwork.
Finally, Chinese contemporary art tends to be critical and negative because of a cultural revolution. As the Cultural Revolution cleared out much of China's cultural history, there is little that remains of artwork from the ancient era. Many Chinese artists are sad and bitter about this event, and paint art which conveys anger and negativity towards both the cultural artwork and the government. These exhibits are most politically charged and make a statement about politics.
For example, using Chinese contemporary artist IYY as an example, he painted a picture of him dropping a Han Dynasty pot. This exhibit represented the destruction of ancient artwork during the Cultural Revolution and is a contemporary art discussion on the horrors of this era. YY's art form is similar across China.
Using these three art pieces as an example, you can see how contemporary art vastly varies across the globalized world. Even in countries such as Japan, China, and Korea, which are located closely together, the artwork is completely different. Due to this globalization, while artwork is shared, there cannot be a definition of a contemporary art, because contemporary art in itself is so different. Due to this, all the countries have their own different definition of contemporary art, meaning that it can't exist as one art form. This in turn creates a situation where contemporary art cannot account for all that takes place, as Liam Gillick has previously stated.